graduating students about to enter the building, the auditorium.
I don't know. What do you think?
Distinguished guests, faculty and staff, family, friends, and MFA alumni, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the graduation of the University of Southern Maine's Stone Coast MFA Winter of 2018 class. Since its inception, the Stone Coast MFA program in creative writing has earned a reputation as one of the nation's leading low-residency graduate programs in creative writing. Tonight's ceremony marks the program's 27th commencement. Stone Coast's success is a product of the hard work, faith, and dedication of the students, faculty, and administrators gathered here tonight. It is also the legacy of those who came before us, just as it is the responsibility of those who follow. Stonecoast is committed to the highest standards of creative achievement and academic rigor. Our alumni honor this program by fostering literary communities, by giving voice to issues of social justice, and by remaining faithful to their craft. This evening, we celebrate this winter's Stonecoast graduates and mark their successful completion of this challenging course of graduate study. As we recognize these worthy students, let us also acknowledge that their success would not have been possible without the hard work and dedication of an exceptional group of faculty. This group of talented teachers, esteemed authors in their own right, have modeled ways to grapple with the core of language and to respond honestly to the world of nature and the self. By applying the high standards of their own work to the writing of their students, they have mentored and helped mentor a writing community which will have a voice in the culture of our country and this world. So now I'd like the faculty to please stand so we may all recognize and thank you. Thank you. Our next speaker is Justin Tucson, Stonecoast Director.
Thank you, Dean Tuchinski. Welcome, Stonecoasters. And pardon me. My oldest son is learning to play the trombone. I am not encouraging him. I prefer quiet. When I cannot have quiet, I like music. And in his hands, the trombone is not a musical instrument. We got it secondhand, so it's possible the original user had already wrung all the music out of it. It was a gift to my son from my ex-father-in-law, a trombonist of some infamy, who liked to retrieve his instrument from the basement during festive moments, such as on Christmas Eve, or while people were watching the Super Bowl. My son, who I love, is tone deaf, which would be a setback if he had any interest in tone. But what he is interested in is a technique called circular breathing. My son's teacher told him a story about an accomplished trombonist who, using this technique, was able to sustain a single note during the entirety of a flight from Seattle to New York. I had the same question. Where were the air marshals? According to my son's teacher, the trombonist only used the trombone's mouthpiece and not the whole twisted contraption. The first time I heard about circular breathing was in Tom Robbins' book, Jitterbug Perfume, where a sect of monks discovered that circular breathing contained the secret to immortality. And finally, I reached the subject of interest to the writers here, immortality. Virginia Woolf and Langston Hughes, Shakespeare and Basho. But I might be a little premature because a few of you barely made it through the last 2 years. Still, I have some advice to keep you on the path. Your MFA wraps up tonight, but your education does not. So here is your eternal homework. Read widely and deeply. Read history and poetry and your local newspaper. Read criticism. Read to discover what you know and haven't yet considered. Read book reviews. Just never regurgitate a review and call it a thought. Read writers who don't sound like you, who don't look like you. Read new writers and old ones. Read like it is your bread, because it is your bread. And write. Write when the mood strikes you and when you have nothing to write about. Write about things that you understand well, and write through the mysteries of your life. In some months, it may well feel like flying, but in others, it will feel like screaming underwater. Stay at it. When you stop, start again. It will take all of your will to drag your book into existence. But do that, and your book will become our bread and we are all terribly hungry. And should someone ever offer you a trombone, punch them square in their circular mouth hole.
Thank you, Justin. And I'd like to apologize. I had arranged for Justin's son to surprise his dad at commencement. So I think he's crying in the back over there. It's now my pleasure to introduce the Winter 2018 commencement speaker. It is James Patrick Kelly, an esteemed author who has won the Hugo, Nebula, and Locus Awards. His most recent publication is the novel Mother Go. He has a new collection, The Promise of Space, forthcoming from Prime Books in 2018. In 2016, Centipede Press published a career retrospective in its Masters of Science Fiction series entitled James Patrick Kelly. He has published over 100 stories, and his fiction has been translated into 18 languages. With John Kessel, he is co-editor of Digital Rapture, the Singularity Anthology, Kafkaesque, Stories Inspired by Franz Kafka, The Secret History of Science Fiction, Feeling Very Strange, the Slipstream Anthology, and Rewired, the Post-Cyberpunk Anthology. In his spare time, he also writes a column on the internet for Asimov's Science Fiction magazine. Please help me welcome James Patrick Kelly.
Dean Jasinski, Winter 2018 graduates, and their honored guests, my colleagues on the staff and the faculty of Stone Coast. I believe tonight we have a first. This is the first time the graduating speaker is graduating with the graduating class. Just so the families and friends know, I've had the privilege of serving on the faculty since 2005 and am now easing into semi-retirement, which means I know all too well how my friends in the caps and gowns feel. We all have a mixture of pride in our accomplishments, relief that we made it through, regret that our Stone Coast adventure is coming to an end. Because when we adjourn tonight, there will be no more packets for you and no more letters of comment for me. What are we going to do with all this time? Me, I intend to write, and I hope that's your plan too. And if I can offer one last snippet of advice and second Justin, I feel like I'm in a workshop and I'm just going to say, I agree with everything he just said. If I can offer any advice, it is please don't wait. As hard as you've worked over the last few months to whip that manuscript into shape and to learn the arcane magic of thesis formatting from Wizard Matt, don't rest on your laurels. No extended vacations. Get back to the writing ASAP. I'd like to say a few words to your family and friends. Hello there! We know how marvelously you've been supporting your writers. That's how they got here in the first place. But now you're going to have to take over at least some of the nurturing that we've been doing here at Stone Coast. Just because they're not in the program anymore doesn't mean you're going to get back all that time they spent writing the packets. They will want to keep working, and you will want to help create the psychic space they will need to do that work as they explore their evolving identities as writers. Because those identities may still be a little fragile. Before they came to Stone Coast, calling themselves writers was a huge leap of faith. It certainly was for me back in the day. You tell someone you're a writer, and if you're lucky, they ask what you write. And you can say memoir, novels, sonnets, essays, plays, films. But all too often the conversation goes on from there. Are you published? Have I read anything you've written? Do you know Stephen King? Can you make a living writing that stuff? Believe me, Those are questions that can cause internal bleeding in a new writer. And now your grads may face another question. So you got an MFA, how's that working out for you? Your writers are going to need you to believe in them. But it's not only because you love them and because you want them to find their bliss. Now you can believe in them because we do. In a few minutes, Dean Trzynski will speak words of power to all of us. Warning, this is a spoiler alert if you don't want to hear how it ends up in this. He will announce that these 14 have been duly approved by the Board of Trustees for a master's degree of fine arts in creative writing. And then he is going to say something that has always puzzled me. Twice a year, for 13 years, I've heard a dean say that our graduates are entitled to their degree with all honors, distinctions, and privileges. I've always wondered